What are you looking forward to on the Day of Reckoning card? So next weekend we'll be there, going live and exclusive as the card takes place, as Matty mentioned on last week's show. What are you actually looking forward to? What do you think the best fight's going to be? What's going to steal the show? What's a potential upset in the making? Just tell us what you're looking forward to on the Day of Reckoning card. So let's go through it then, shall we? One by one. First of all, this sort of early stuff, Matty, we'll deal with that before we get on to the main course. Filip Hrgović, we'll do it in blocks of three. So Filip Hrgović against Mark Demori. I expect Hrgović to get rid of Demori because he's a bit of a waster. Frank Sanchez against Junior Farr, I think has the potential to be a bit of a stinker. There's a question mark next to it. The box record may be asking why on earth this fight's been put on. More than likely, they're asking how long it's going to be. Probably a 10-rounder. And then Arslanbek Makhmudov, the third fight as well, 18-0, going against Ajit Kabayel, 23-0. He's a banger. Makhmudov comes forward, gets hold of you, roughs you up, tries to knock you out. Kabayel is the complete opposite. He likes to get on the back foot and outbox people. So what about that? Hrgović Demori, Sanchez against Junior Farr, and Makhmudov against Ajit Kabayel, Matty.
Well, I honestly, I would be more interested in you guys' thoughts on Kabayel. I haven't seen a lot of him. I've seen Makhmudov, obviously, and my hunch would be that he's just going to demolish Kabayel in a few rounds. I think that Sanchez he's a really sharp puncher, and I know a lot of people think that this could be a boring whatever fight. Faz, nothing too great. I mean, he's no great shakes whatsoever, honestly.
Crap.
And I think you might kind of see something kind of like where you got a really sharp puncher who can just find an opening, and it happens pretty early, kind of like when it's probably, what is it now, 2 years ago, when Lara just demolished that cornflake Lamana guy. It just he just wasn't there, and one guy's just way more skilled. So I think that's going to end up pretty quick. What I worry about Hrgović against Demori, you look at and you're like, oh, Hrgović should take him out in just a couple, 2-3 rounds. Right? He's clearly better, but I think Hrgović has a problem with fighting to the level of his opposition to some degree. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that one be the junker of this group of fights.
Okay, Matty has made his feelings known. The boys in the chat have as well. And girls, possibly. They could be out there. We don't know. Mark Stanton says Hrgović will be a stinker. Thomas Newman says, did Frank Sanchez turn up yet? He wasn't at the launch presser or at the grand arrivals. I know there was some issue over Jay Opetaia's opponent as well. Kabayel will test Makhmudov's body and give him some movement and a double jab to deal with. Michael Thompson says, haven't seen Sanchez for so long. I'm beginning to doubt if he exists. His promoters are probably thinking the same as well. Michael Thompson's talking about something else. Okay, then, Andy. So first 3 fights on the card. Makhmudov, Kabayel, Sanchez, Farr, Hrgović, Demori. What are you thinking? Demori's had plenty of time. What is it, 8 years since the hay loss to get himself back into action? What are you expecting?
I don't know, mate. I'm obviously Hrgović to win, obviously. Probably by murder of the eyeballs. It'll be an absolute shit fight. I think he'll probably get a mercy stoppage. I noticed on BoxRec this isn't got any rounds listed, so probably an 8-rounder possibly.
I think 10 they'll probably do, won't they?
Yeah, probably, mate. Frank Sanchez against Junior Farr. Now, listen, I'm going to go with Sanchez knockout because fucking Lucas Brown beat that bum Junior Farr, was it last year, by first round stoppage. So, and fucking Lucas Brown, I'm not into triangle threes and all that type of stuff, Matt, but Lucas Brown got absolutely sparkled off at Petrovsky last week or 2 weeks ago.
It's time for Lucas to hang him up for sure.
Yeah, without doubt. But they're saying this is Lucas, who's like a year removed from knocking out Junior Farr. So, plus obviously Parker kind of beat him up over 12 rounds or whatever it was. And then Makhmudov, I agree with, who was it, Steve, had mentioned there about the jab and the movement? Was it MB? I agree with that. Yes. I have seen a fair bit of Kabayel. He's a decent technician, good uppercuts to the body and that as well. Makhmudov is pretty stiff, straight up, no special effects, as Rob would say. So, probably be a bit more difficult one, actually. I could potentially see Kabayel outbox him to a decision. Not really seen Makhmudov properly tested, so this could be the fight. Then again, just depending on Kabayel as well, how's he going to turn up? But I think this fight could be out that wee kind of like 3 fights you've picked out there, mate. I think that could be the more interesting out of the bottom 3 fights. I wouldn't be surprised to see Kabayel possibly pull off a decision. Makhmudov's still going to be tested. Good power, obviously, in that as well. But Kabayel has got the angles. He's got a decent jab. decent foot movement. As I say, he's got decent shots of the body and that as well. So it's I would say it'd be an upset if he was to pull that one off.
Could be a possible upset there. No upset here from Danny Young. He's jumped on, no doubt, to talk about Inoue Tapales. But Danny, I want to get your opinions on the next two fights that I'm going to mention here. No heavyweight action for you, unfortunately. We're going down to cruiserweights. Jay Opetaia, if it takes place, he's defending his IBF title against Ellis Zorro.
He's vacated that belt, mate.
Oh, right, okay. So I thought there was some issue over that. So is Opetaia on the card at all, Andy? Do we know?
Yeah, I believe he's on the card, mate. That's the reason why he's vacated, because he was.
Oh, right. So he can still go through with the fight.
I believe so. Because he was getting told. I believe. I don't
he had
know
to
if
fight
it was
Bradis or something. They were saying.
No, it was somebody else. Give me a second, mate. I just want to pull up the rankings here.
Well, he was probably getting, at least $250,000 for this.
He wants the money, doesn't he?
Mm.
He wants that money.
I can't. It might have been the Bradis rematch, mate, possibly. But if it isn't, it's potentially somebody else. But I believe he was mandated, and he's now vacated. I believe.
Fair enough. Thanks for clarifying that, Andy. Danny, back to you then in that case with Dimitri Bivol against Lyndon Arthur. He's only got one loss on his record, Arthur, but he had to come from behind to win that IBO World Heavyweight title, which is on the line alongside Bivol's WBA Super World Light Heavyweight title. After beating Canelo and then beating Ramirez, Bivol is lesser spotted these days. Are you happy to see him, even if it is against someone like Lyndon Arthur, who he should beat? But in the past, we've seen Bivol fight down to the level of his opposition.
Yeah, hi Steve. Can you hear me all right? Yeah.
Yeah, lovely.
Good man. All right. Yeah, no. Yeah, you just want to see Bivol in action because obviously, like, we're just all, waiting for the big Beterbiev Bivol kind of unification, aren't we? So the Callum Smith fight for Beterbiev is January, isn't it? I think it is.
Yep, 13th,
right?
I think.
So yeah, like they're fighting, in and around the kind of same date, within a month of each other. Get these two out of the way, warm-ups, if you like. I know people are going, I've seen people punt money on Smith, but I can't see it myself. So I think those two will come out unscathed, and we'll just wait for the next one. Hopefully, this Riyadh season can pick that one up as a big unified event, and we'll get what we want to see. So yeah, I don't mind Bivol against Arthur. Arthur, yes, he's got one loss, but in truth, he's always kind of, for me, kind of maybe at best the European level. I know he had the win over your man there.
Yard.
Oh God, Yard. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah. But then again, Yard in truth was European level at best from. And then he turned up for the Beterbiev fight and put a few good rounds in there. So, yeah, fine. You know what I mean? But I mean, Lyndon Arthur hasn't fought for a little while either, has he? So, or no one of note anyway. So, yeah, a takeover fight really for Bivol, and then Opetaia. I'm assuming he's just vacated for the money because. If you're on this card and then you've got the sanctioning body telling you, no, you're not fighting this person. We want you to fight X, Y, and Z.
Yeah,
you're going to say bollocks. I'm taking this money because it's, for a guy like him, you don't get many fights, across the pond where he is. So you've just got to take what you can get. And if it is good money, and I assume it would be, given the card that it's on, you've got to take it, and you've got to think of your family and all the rest of it. So fair play to him. But I'd like to see that. Once he gets through this one, that he might actually go in with a name of some sort. I'm just wondering whether Opetaia would be one of these guys that would move into that new kind of bridgerweight category, but maybe not. No,
I don't think so.
He's not a small cruiserweight, but he's not a big cruiserweight, is he? From what I remember. So.
He's about 6'2". He's pretty well filled out, but you'd see them going for the heavyweight money. Those sorts of intervening things doesn't seem to be the names there.
Opetaia is at least 6'3", I think, and he is chiseled. I would say he's basically David Haye kind of build.
But he's having seen a few of his fights, there's nothing's really making me think, like that Usyk, like you think, oh, he could step up. Like he's not showing anything that I could think. Or he could probably trouble. I mean, yes, he could probably trouble a few of the heavyweights because let's face it, it's not a blessed division, is it? So, but again, hopefully a takeover fight for him. He'll bust him out of the way, and then hopefully he'll get an opponent that's meaningful in the new year for me.
Hopefully so, Danny. Stick with us for as long as you want. Des is back with us. Good to see you there, Des. Back onto the heavyweights for you, actually. Daniel Dubois against Jarrell Miller. It's one of these fights that's sort of split in opinion. Some people seem to think that Miller's a big pudding who's going to get blasted out by Daniel. Other people think Daniel's a bit one-dimensional. Miller is tough, if nothing else. He will soak up the shots and keep coming. Intriguing clash of styles. Where do you stand on this one, Des?
I think Dubois wins. I think Dubois brings together all his experience, the going out to fight Usyk, the Joe Joyce defeat, which I think was his best performance, and I think he sorts Miller right out. I think he stops Miller. I don't think Miller's fit enough to go 10 rounds or 12 rounds either.
I don't know. I think he might be, Des. I think he has in the past. Not against anyone of Dubois' character. And he'll be juiced up to the gills, you would imagine. So,
but is he £300 and things like that? It's like, it's a lot to ask, isn't it?
You have to remember, though, that there's 330-pound NFL linemen who run a 40-yard dash in less than 5 seconds. It's sometimes that size is no indication of the ability. This is going to tell a lot about Miller and Dubois. That's why it's such an interesting fight. Great fight on paper. Absolutely.
Matt, it's interesting you use that comparison because I used to know a lot of 100-meter sprinters. And sometimes when them 100-meter sprinters finish, they get under 11. Sometimes they can't talk for 2 minutes. So it's a strange. I get it. I know. I totally understand with a linebacker comparison, but we're asking. I mean, is this fight over 12 rounds?
12 rounds, yeah.
You're asking.
No, it's
Miller,
not. No, it's not. We all know it's not over 12 rounds.
You're asking Miller to go 36 minutes against a younger, fresher, bigger kid. I don't think he'll last for 36. I think Dubois stops him.
So this is my hunch on this one, Des, is I think this fight goes one of two ways. And I'll kick this off saying that a couple of weeks ago, I got a little bit of action on Jarrell Miller at 4-1 just to win. Mm-hmm. Now you're seeing Jarrell Miller as tight as 5. There's been a fair amount of money that's moved in his direction. And my hunch is that either A, that money moving in is right. Dubois is fragile. Miller is a tank, and it's just a bad style matchup. And he's going to eventually just Dubois not necessarily having the tank. He's just going to get taken out by a big dude. Or this big guy without much head movement, without much defense is going to be caught clean. He's going to be caught a lot, and he'll be taken out in the first 6 rounds. And I think it's an easy place to play a cover when you have a 4-1 out there. And I'm thinking you can probably get Dubois first 6 rounds, probably at least near the same.
I think this is where you've got to be very careful because you've got the best talker in boxing against the worst talker in boxing. And I think anyone watching this up to the first bell, you naturally assume Jarrell Miller is going to win this fight. And I think once the bell goes, I think that will switch. I think there's been a lot of mug money on Miller because he's such a good talker.
You might be right. And I guess that's why it makes this fight so interesting, especially considering that the hardcore boxing fans were curious about Miller on his way up. This big tank takes a shot, lands a bunch of hard shots, had the chance against Joshua, blew it. So I think we're all still very curious about that fighter and what he's capable of. But at the same time, what is that, 5 years ago now? I don't know. It's a very interesting fight on paper, and I honestly think it's the best looking fight of the entire card as far as being closer to a coin flip and having some intrigue to it.
He has gone the 12 as well in the past, but it was against Johan de Hapas, so you have to imagine that. I think I saw that fight. It's going to be pretty one-sided. He's not going to be put under any great pace. Back to you, Des. Actually, the chat's showing us exactly how things are back and forward. Michael Thompson says, good points from Des. Miller looked knackered early against Brown, but then number 1 says Dubois went down 3 times to Lorena. And we know we could put that down to the cruciate injury or whatever it was supposedly, Des, but the fact he was dropped by Lorena, who's effectively a cruiserweight, it does add a bit of intrigue.
It does. And it's almost like heavyweight boxers are never forgiven for getting dropped, are they? I mean, we talk about him getting dropped, but we don't talk about him getting back up, do we? And he did get back up, and he did stop the kid in the next round. So could you imagine if you were Dubois' trainer and Shane said to him, it was McGuigan in the corner, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And he said, right, jump on this kid now. You've got a bad knee. I don't want this going another round. Dubois has gone out and executed brilliantly, but we never quite see that side of it. We just think Dubois has gone down, and I still think Dubois is hurting from the Joe Joyce loss. And it's really interesting because Dubois took so much flack. By comparison, Sonny's getting so much love for pretty much the same action, and it's not the same consequence. I think Dubois is not being forgiven for the Joe Joyce thing. I think the Lorena thing's hanging over him, and even I'm still a little bit disappointed the way he approached the Usyk fight. I don't think he put his foot on the gas. I don't think he jumped on him when he should have done, but I think he'll use all of that, and I think he'll had a lot of people in his ear saying, "This is where you turn up." And to go back to Matty's point, Miller was sitting in between, I think it was Wilder and Parker, and he was calling out the winner of AJ and Volin. He said, after I've done you, I'm going to take on Wilder and maybe I'll get on to Fury. If you wasn't a boxing enthusiast, if you didn't know boxing, you'd watch this fight, you'd watch the pressers, and it's only going to get more intense. And you think Miller is full of confidence, he's the fighter on the up, and Dubois is the guy that's brought in to get beat. But we know a bit different to that, don't we? We know Dubois is a capable kid, but he's just not a good talker. I think this fight, I think it's the hardest fight of Miller's career. I think it's probably the most pivotal fight of Dubois' career. He has to win. I think Dubois jumps on him and stops him.
And just to play devil's advocate, Des, you mentioned about hurting from the Joyce fight, the issues around the Lorena fight, him not putting the foot down against Usyk, and use that as an example of how people might have talked him around, and all of a sudden he's going to give a performance based off those three previous fights. But what happens if he is that fighter that turned up and he's still mentally that fighter that turned up against Usyk, Lorena and Joyce? Do we then suddenly think that Miller has a better chance?
Well, look, I've always said this, and me and you've spoke about this plenty of times. I think Dubois is someone you could spook. I think if Dubois was to fight a Dillian White, or if he was to fight a Deontay Wilder, I think them guys could really spook him. But I think if Dubois can keep his head together, if Dubois can keep focused, I think it's the Dubois win. But you're absolutely right. This gets really interesting if Miller has a really good first 3 rounds and starts to rough Dubois up. But when you look at Dubois, if you look at his physicality, if you look at his capability, he shouldn't be getting roughed up by Miller. He should be doing the roughing up. And I go back to it, Steve. The best version of Dubois I've ever seen was against Joe Joyce. He was brilliant that night. And he was probably up on the cards when he got beat. Mm-hmm. And if he'd have just stayed in that mindset, if he'd have just, it's a bit like what they've done to Anthony Joshua against Ruiz. They overcomplicated it. If they'd just simplified this and said, on another night, that injury don't occur and you go on to win the fight, I think you'd have seen a better version of Dubois against Usyk. But look, it's done and dusted. I go back to what I said. I think if he can draw on all his experience, you get a really good version of Dubois, and it's a pivotal night for him. But you're absolutely right. If Miller starts fast and roughs him up in the first 3 or 4 rounds, it gets really interesting.
Matt Butters has jumped in. He says, my day of reckoning picks. He thinks Wallin is going to win on points. He thinks Wilder's going to win KO 3, Bivol KO 4, Opetaia KO 5, Mahmoudov KO 6. I'm seeing a pattern here. Sanchez points. Sorry. I mean
0.7, Steve.
I know.
0.7.
I know. Miller KO 8. I couldn't carry the joke on Matty. Miller KO and Horgovich KO as well for Matt Butters there. Andy, I think it's going to be interesting to see which way Dubois and Miller goes from a mental standpoint as much as a physical standpoint. I think that whenever he fought Lorena, just going back to that fight again, I know I'm doing it to death, but anyone with a bit more punch, a bit belief in themselves than Lorena could have put Dubois out, I think, after they chopped him those first couple of times. I think it was as much to do with Dubois coming back and finishing him, or as also Lorena's sort of, the arse dropping out of him. Coming forward and getting, a better fighter would have got the job done is basically what I'm trying to say.
Lorena got an injury in that fight, or allegedly.
Well, Dubois got the injury,
Dubois,
didn't he?
Sorry, it was Dubois.
Yeah.
Sorry, I completely forgot about that. Yeah, so basically we had to get up and get on with it, mate. So that's what he done in the end. But I still think Miller's just all talk, mate, to be fair. To be honest, I've not seen him much since the comeback. Might have a bit of hand speed here and still, but all Dubois has really got to do, if he's don't want to take risks, he just keeps it long, jab, right hand, just keep Miller at the end of it. Doesn't really want to get tied up in the ropes. Doesn't want to allow Miller to kind of like, start haymakering or windmilling up and that type of thing. Go to kind of, doesn't want to cover up. Go to keep it disciplined and then just keep chipping away at him. It's 12 rounds. Keep chipping, and then I think maybe he could get Miller to gas, jab to the body, upstairs, just drop a few body shots here and there, and just gradually wear at him. Yeah, I dare say he'll come in, what are you thinking here? 320, 330?
He came in 341, is his career heaviest against Bracamonte, but he was just coming back off his ban then, wasn't he? In his last fight, he was 333, so he slimmed down by about 8 pounds. Yeah, I think he'd be about 320.
Yeah, so still a big dude, but I could see Dubois just chipping away and probably win a points decision. I think once he gets about the mid half, I can maybe see Dubois maybe starting to just edge away. Just as I say, he doesn't need to take risks. Just needs to kind of make sure. Dubois is not a heavy guy, to be fair. But is he usually weighing in about these days? Let's check his previous weights. Am I saying to you?
Let's have a look.
230, 240.
240 kind of
240 mark in that. I mean, the thing is, that's 240 a muscle in that as well. It's no flab. Yeah, I think he'll be okay. Just got to believe himself, really. I know he kind of fell apart against Usyk a wee bit. But got to get back on the road here. Got to get back on the bike and start winning again. And if he doesn't win this fight, my God, it's not so much a road back, mate. It's a fucking long walk back to the fucking top if ever gets there.
A long haul flight back to the UK, you would imagine, Danny. Let's get on to the main 2 fights then and talk about them together, because obviously we're expecting if Joshua gets the job done, Wilder gets the job done, or whoever wins, they're going to hopefully fight around sort of Easter time. Anthony Joshua going in against Otto Wallin. Deontay Wilder going in 12 rounder against Joseph Parker. Bit of inactivity for Wilder there. Wallin, we've seen him turn up in the past and also not turn up at a lesser level. He's not going to get a better chance to pull off the upset than this one. Has Joshua still got it? Did Joseph Parker ever have it? So many questions, Danny, coming into these 2 fights.
Yeah, and it's an interesting one because so I was in London town yesterday having a few drinks with the old boys, and it was quite interesting because a few of them actually came up to me and said, "What's this Otto Wallin like?" And I said, "Well, I said he's all right, like I said, I got to be honest, I fancy him against Joshua." And they went, "Oh, that's funny because I've had a few quid on him."
Ooh.
And I was like, "To do what?" And they were like, "Well, on both, on the points and the KO." Because I think one of the betting companies I looked at the other day, I think it was like he's like 12-1 to get the knockout or something like that. And I've got doubts about Joshua. I really have. Like, I know, he was poor in his last fight against the I've forgotten your man there. Bloody hell, the American guy, wasn't it? That Dillian White fought the fight.
Oh,
before.
Franklin,
that's the one. Yeah, he was poor in that fight, really poor. I thought so. Very gun shy, didn't really, and he took a lot of punches as well. Didn't need to, but took a lot of punches as well. I just think like Wallin's got it. He's got nothing to lose. Like, he really hasn't got nothing to lose. I think it was funny because, like, again, I had a few of the old boys last night say to me, "Oh, I remember him fighting against Fury, and cutting him up." And obviously, as some of you boys have said, at that time, another referee might have stopped that, because the cut was that bad. So I'm hoping, they're hoping. I mean, the only downside to it is that it will leave Wilder short of a dance partner, because I can't imagine Joe Parker's going to do anything. I think Joe Parker is on the decline. Don't get me wrong. He's been I think he's been a good professional for the heavyweight division. He's actually fought some names as well. He's actually got, regardless of result, he's got a little resume there of some names. And he's just a nice guy. But it'd be wrong to see him kind of go out, sprawled across the canvas like many of Wilder's opponents have in the past. But yeah, I think that's my only worry, is that Wilder potentially could be stuck without anyone to fight after this, because obviously if you've got Fury and Usyk, waiting until February now to kind of clear that up, then where does that leave Wilder? Because there's not many other names outside of that, and I don't know. Would he just take Wallin if Wallin beats Joshua? I don't know. I don't think that's a big enough name for him, and the money's not going to be there. I don't think so. It'll be an interesting one. I really do think it's an interesting one from the Joshua perspective. I think Wilder's fight is a bit of a walk in the park, and I expect him to kind of win by knockout within 6 for me. The Joshua one, I can't make any predictions on that, but I really do fancy Wallin to kind of put in some kind of performance, and I'll be disappointed if he doesn't.
Andy, I think it's best for the heavyweight division if we see old nice guy Joseph Parker sprawled out on the canvas. Deontay Wilder knocking people out. He's a dangerous Deontay, and that's the kind of Deontay I want to see. As for Wallin, he has it all in his hands to come forward. Has he got the devil? Will he be able to do enough? Will he be able to grasp this opportunity, let it slip? Not through any fault of his own necessarily against Tyson Fury. Second bite of the cherry for him. Do you think he'll be able to do enough?
Wallin, I don't believe so, mate. I think it comes down to belief with him also at the end of the day. I also believe a bit of belief needed by Joshua as well. I think he's looked obviously awful since the last Usyk fight, but Wallin as well, he is as good a the back foot fighter as he is. I just don't think he lets enough punches go. That Gazaev fight, he did not need to allow it to kind of get that close in the cards, I don't think. Again, just a wee bit lack of belief, a wee bit lack of activity, I think, as well. But Joshua, just, again, another one just needs to kind of keep it straight shots. And I think Wallin would have serious issues. Wallin, I think, would need to take big risks. I just don't see him doing it. But again, you never know. Maybe on the night he might just decide to turn the script and that. But based off what I've seen him in the past, I think he's a very safe, cautious fighter. Technically very good, but I just don't think he's active enough. And I think it plays into Joshua's hands. So I think Joshua might have a wee bit of issue having to kind of follow him out the ring a little bit. So maybe be interested to see how he is at cutting off the ring. And Wilder, yeah, again, suspect to win by knockout. Not really going to base much off. He hasn't really fought since the Fury fight, has he? We're not really even going to put any stock into the Hellenius knockout. So again, up to him what he's got left. But I suspect once he starts, kind of like, if he does start finding the range, kind of start catching Parker with some shots, I think it will just be a matter of time till he finds something sweet. And providing he's got no harm problems in camp, I suspect he'll probably win by knockout by. I think he'll probably go rounds. Actually, I think he'll probably go past the midway point, and I think maybe that's when Wilder might start dropping the hammer a little bit.
Kaiser Koba says, agreed. Andy 100% was just about to say that. Wallin was very cautious in the Gassiev fight. It's not 2016 anymore, says Kaiser Koba. But would anyone here pick Wallin against the Joshua that fought Charles Martin? No, certainly wouldn't. Matty,
that was
12.
The last southpaw that Joshua ever beat, by the way.
Interesting. Yeah, he's had southpaw trouble, hasn't he? Especially in those 24 rounds against Usyk. Prince Charles, no such trouble, Andy. Yeah, what do you think about that one? Would you back the Joshua who beat Charles Martin against Wallin?
Yeah,
I would.
Absolutely. I'm just going through his record here, trying to find a southpaw. No, him. Trying to see if Charles Martin.
Gary Cornish was a switch hitter.
Steve, I remember Charles Martin boxing Tom Dallas, and he came over here with a fantastic reputation. And that all got lost in translation when the way AJ beat him. But Charles Martin was always a good prospect.
Mm-hmm.
No, Pulev's orthodox. Sorry, mate. On you go.
Go ahead, Des.
No, I was just saying, Charles Martin had a very good reputation coming up. And he came over here and boxed Tom Dallas and had a very good reputation. And it all got lost in translation because of the way he won his title, the way he beat, I forget the Russian kid's name.
Glashkov when his knee went. Yeah, the way he beat Glashkov, the way they fought for that title, and the way they brought him over here for AJ to bash him up, it got lost in translation what a good fighter Charles Martin is. And I think we saw a really good version of Charles Martin losing against Jared Anderson recently. I think Charles Martin's a good fighter, and if that AJ turns up that was on fire from Charles Martin to Povetkin, I think he beats Wallin. Mm-hmm. Well, Matty, that's a perfect transition. So come Saturday night, we've done our commentary. It's 12 o'clock, 12:30. Mrs. Wellington's raging because I'm still messing about on the microphone. What is an ideal scenario for you, Matty? All the fights have happened. Whoever's been knocked out has won. Whoever's been banged out has lost. What is the ideal scenario for you moving forward at the end of the day of reckoning, moving into boxing, Christmas Eve?
I think what everybody really wants is to make sure that AJ versus Wilder moves forward, right? And so for that to happen, Wilder and AJ have to win. But I'm not sure that's how it goes. AJ and the Southpaw troubles. I mean, Alexander Usyk being an extremely elite Southpaw, but there is a lack of Southpaws on AJ's resume. I also worry about his ability to work when the guy's coming in close. And Wallen has shown that he can box a little bit too. It'll be interesting to see how that one goes. Wallen is just a little bit less than a 3-1, paying 3-1 right now. So, I think he's a good value pick potentially. But it's tough to say. And I'll harp on it. If Wallen tries to get in his chest and AJ rediscovers his uppercut and recommits to it, I could definitely see Wallen get knocked out with an uppercut. But my lean is that Wallen should get the victory, but I don't think he gets the nod. I sense there could be a little fuckery afoot in Saudi Arabia on Saturday. And as far as Wilder goes, he's had some trouble with shorter fighters. I'm trying to remember the dude that he knocked out in the 9th round, the bald Polish guy.
Spilka.
Yeah, he gave him a little bit of troubles, but he was using some kind of funkier head movement, and I think he had better legs than Parker, who's only 31 years old, by the way. I thought Parker was way older than 31. He's been around forever.
It's quite mediocre, though, isn't he? I mean, he's okay. He's solid enough. He doesn't really do anything. Spilka, for all of his faults, was small. He was a mover, southpaw. He sort of was a little bit slippery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just don't know that necessarily Parker's going to bring any of that which gives Wilder troubles to the ring on Saturday. And I think the best bet that I'm seeing, I mean, obviously if you took Wilder by KO in rounds 1 through 6, probably getting better odds, but I just think the under 6.5 rounds and that fight stands out to me. I don't see Parker getting that far into the fight for some reason. So we'll see how it goes. I think controversial decision in AJ versus Wallen, and conclusive victory for Deontay Wilder.
Yeah, I think Volin will do okay for the first few rounds. It'll be interesting, and then Joshua will start getting the uppercut off, starting to hold him, hug him. I think it become quite messy, and Joshua will win on points in quite a bit of a damp squib towards the end of the fight. As for Wilder, I was going to just close by asking you, Des. I think the Wilder fight has the potential to get quite interesting. He has been a 1-fight-a-year guy. For all intents and purposes, his last major test was the October 2021 fight, which was over 2 years ago now, against Tyson Fury. I know he was in action last October against Hellenius, but the fight barely lasted 3 minutes. He's been inactive, Wilder. If he doesn't bang Parker out early on, I'm not saying he'll necessarily struggle, but all of a sudden that inactivity could kind of catch up on him. And before you know it, he's getting dragged into a 7, an 8, a 9, a 10 round kind of fight that he doesn't want to be involved in.
Yeah, it's a good point. We've not seen a lot of prime activity from Wilder. I say the same about Fury as well. So our premier heavyweights have really had a very quiet 2 or 3 years going into their biggest fights or their pivotal fights. I think Wilder beats Parker because I think Parker is just perfect for Wilder. But I think it goes a lot longer than people think. I don't think Wilder flattens him early. I think Parker probably sticks Wilder on the back foot and makes him ask a few questions of him, as a lot of short fighters that have come forward have asked of Wilder. I think Wilder gets to him probably any time after 8, and I think he puts Parker to kip. And if I can go back just briefly, Steve, I know you've got a schedule.
No.
Do any of the lads? I don't think Wallen beats AJ. I think he's got a very passive Wallen, and I think AJ will have to come out and own this fight. But are any of you expecting a positive bounce like from Ben Davison? Are we expecting? Do we see a better version of AJ? And
100%, mate. 100%. Ben Davison does unrivaled work, mate. Honestly, he will.
I don't know as much as what the trainers can do these days. Des, as AJ himself, I'm not sure about the bopping between trainers. I thought he would have better off sort of getting used to Derek James, maybe. Possibly Davison, for all of his faults, does have experience. He was in the Fury corner, wasn't he, when he fought Volin back? So he will have up close and personal 12 rounds of seeing what he's all about. But Joey Gamache in Volin's corner as well, very good trainer. So it could be a battle of minds going on there, possibly out of the ring.
Sometimes you can be in the right place at the right time. You see it in football managers. And I think the whole McCracken thing it burnt itself out. Then the Angel Fernandez thing never quite fit. I think going out to Derek James wasn't a good move. It probably confused AJ. And I think Ben Davison might pull all that together and say, let's just go back to basics. Let's keep it very simple, very straight. Let's keep throwing punches. Let's keep our chin down. And I think that version of AJ, the one that Rob McCracken had, which was a real basic heavyweight who could throw punches in bunches, hold centre ring, keep his chin down. I think that's a good version of AJ. And I think that AJ beats Volin.
Chris Butler there, Des, just quickly saying, I don't think it matters who's in AJ's corner now. AJ, don't listen.
AJ is he's fragile and he's I totally understand what Chris is saying. And look, AJ is ready to go. But I just can't see Volin or Parker upsetting the boxing ecosystem. It's going to be eventually AJ and Wilder, and them two, the winner fights the winner of Usyk. And I mean, there's an awful lot of hundreds of millions of pounds involved here, and I just don't think Volin and Parker are the fighters to upset all that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I know Danny wanted to make a point. Danny, AP says, can you imagine the absolute philosophical waffling shite going on between AJ and Ben? Danny's disappeared now. What's coming to you, Danny? I was trying to get there. Des has set it up nicely for me, he says, and then Danny got iced off the call, unfortunately. We'll hopefully try and get him back in again. Matty, which do you think is going to be the fight of the night? Competitiveness, knockout, someone coming back from the brink? Who do you think is going to steal the show? There's a potential for a few stinkers, I think.
I honestly think that Dubois versus Miller is going to be the best fight of the show. 100%.
Dubois versus Miller, says Matty.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah? Do you think so, Des, as well, yeah?
I just think it's the most, it can go one of both ways. And I think I've sussed Wilder and Parker, and I think I've got AJ and Volin, and we know Bivol and Arthur. I think Opetaia wins. Matty called Caballero just how I would have seen it, and I think this is the only anomaly of the whole show. We don't quite know what Dubois is going to turn up. We don't quite know what Miller's going to turn up.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think Bivol against Arthur will look pretty similar to Bivol against Craig Richards, probably. Go on, Danny. Final point to you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yes, obviously, you're all sitting out there thinking, well, if Wilder does his job and Joshua does his job, then it's a match made. Well, let's remind ourselves here, right? I can see it now. Well, Koogs, we've offered 80-20 because it's the Joshua that the fans want to see. It's not really Wilder and all that. So let's look. The geezer's had about fucking 10 years to put that fight together, and it hasn't happened then. So let's just take that into account right now. Yeah, I know there's some money behind it, backing it, but it's these personalities getting in the way, making it like it's their fight as opposed to the fighter's fight. So I wouldn't be too sure about it yet.
First time though, Danny. In 10 years, Hearn's he's backed really to the wall now. He has to.
Well, he's got no choice, has he? Because he's got no. He can't make a deal, so he's going to have to let other people do deals for him. So yeah.
And plus, he's lost his headliner for Liverpool, Scout Lomachenko, getting knocked out.
Andy, you're a hater, man. It says there on the screen. Look, Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder. Terms agreed for heavyweight fights, says promoter Eddie Hearn. That was back on the 10th of September, man. So imagine all the time he's had to put it together behind the scenes since then.
Is that 10th of September 1997, was it?
We're 2 weeks away, mate. We're 2 weeks away.